All right. This is sort of like an after party of the old show. But really I started this second live stream because of my previous videos that I did on the channel. And I saw a lot of questions about DNA, and so I can answer those questions right now about all my previous videos that I've done on the show. And also I can direct y'all on how to perform or how to work around the YouTube channel. So I'm just gonna wait and see who's all gonna come and be here. Still getting used to this live stream stuff. All right, shalom. Shalom, Sephora. And I'm gonna answer y'all's questions concerning all previous videos on the channel. And I'm also going to kind of do a quick overview of the way this channel works, the way you should kind of operate things, from my playlists to my videos. And you can also, ask me questions on certain topics concerning, the origins of Proto-Semites and Haplogroup E, Afro-Asiatic, Natufians, Ibero-Maurutians, Basal-Eurasians, stuff like that. Would Israel be all Haplogroup E markers? I do believe that Israel, from a genetic point of view of descending from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, a straight paternal line, I do believe that they would have E markers, yes, over any other genetic marker. E would be my best bet, based on all the information about early Proto-Semites being basically carriers of haplogroup E, and the fact that Semites are an Afro-Asiatic people. Most linguists and geneticists would say that that the Afro-Asiatics, Proto-Afro-Asiatics, were E carriers, and so since Semites are Afro-Asiatic people, it makes sense that they would also be E. So yes, E would be the marker of Israel from a straight paternal lineage. But of course, people were grafted in and brought into the faith, so then others would have popped up as well. But from a paternal line perspective, I would say yes, it's E. So I'm just going to go ahead and go into the way this YouTube channel should go about. So I'm going to quickly pull up this right here. So as you can see, this is the Hebrew of Israel channel, and here are the videos. So the way I kind of broke this up and the way that y'all can operate around this is that the first set of videos will cover the various origins of Afro-Asiatics, because I feel like it's important to know where do Afro-Asiatics, originate from, and then we can harmonize this with the scriptures. And I know a lot of people believe in a young earth or old earth, and so I have a video explaining what that is, and I'm actually using two models when it comes to proving who or proving how an old earth can work and a young earth can work when it comes to DNA and migration patterns and stuff like that. And so my first set of videos, starting from the origins of Proto-Afro-Asiatics to the origins of Haplogroup DE to the basal Eurasian ancestors of Semites to the Proto-Semitic genome to Proto-Semites and Haplogroup E to what did Proto-Semites look like. All of this deals with more of an old earth perspective on how I would view early Semites and their origins. And then from this video, where was the Garden of Eden, all the way to what did Semites look like, all of this is more so a young Earth perspective. And then I break everything up into a summarization of an old Earth and a young Earth. So here's the playlists. So if you go to created playlists, you'll see how I broke everything up for y'all so it can be easier. So I would have strongly advised that you watch these videos concerning DNA, because it's important to know, how does DNA work? What are genes? What is DNA? What is an allele? What is an autosomal DNA? STR analysis, haplogroups. All of this is important to understanding and breaking down the genome of Israelites. And then, of course, the origins of Afroasiatic, as I covered. This will just basically deal with the basic common origins of them, being in the Horn of Africa, Yemen, Arabian Peninsula, Eastern Sahara, North Africa, the Levant with the Natufians, etc. And then I have my Old Earth and Young Earth video. And for those of you that might be curious about the Old Earth or Young Earth perspective, I have playlists. I advise that you watch these playlists that deal with a Old Earth. It can kind of break down how that would work. And same thing with a Young Earth. I have a lot of videos that can break down the Young Earth. And because personally, I do subscribe a little bit more to a Young Earth. But still, I have both perspectives for people who want to learn it. And then I have DNA in the Bible, how genetics is not something that you should be afraid of, that, it is scriptural. I mean, the Most High did create it, and I believe you can use it. And DNA is proof of intelligent design. And so all these videos basically deal with that. The fact that DNA is evidence of God, evidence of the Most High, that, the fact that we have this is not by coincidence, is not by a big bang. And so this playlist, The Origins of Proto-Semites, deals with, like I said, an old Earth perspective on the origins of Semites. And this video, From Shem to Eber to Abraham, this playlist deals with a young Earth perspective when it comes to the origins of Semites. And both videos have the perspective of Haplogroup E in mind. And then have this playlist dealing with the genotype and phenotype of Proto-Semites from both an old Earth and a young Earth perspective. And they're just summary videos. I did my best to summarize it. And then I have playlists dealing with just the basics like Haplogroup E, Afroasiatics, Semitic languages, Natufian culture, and Shem. And that, because all of this covered what we covered here in previous videos. So check out these playlists. Don't just watch my videos, but also look into the playlist, because they break things down as well and give you a deeper understanding than what I can do in an hour or 2 hour video. It's best to get a deeper understanding. Now I'm going to look at your questions to see what y'all have to say. So let's see. Asiatic Lion. What group do you reason built the proto? Oh, okay. So who do I believe did that? All right. So the group that I believe built the Afro-Arabian Nubian complex of Oman and Northwest Arabia. That's a good question. It could be the Basal Eurasians, but it could be like a pre-proto Nilo-Saharan type of people. I did look into the Afro-Arabian Nubian complex of Oman and Northwest Arabia, and I am looking into ways how I can harmonize that with both a young Earth and a old Earth, because that's what I always try to do, is to harmonize both understandings. So I would have to look into that a little bit deeper. I'm mostly focused on a few other things at the moment, but that was a good question. Thank you. Thank you. And the rabbi will be coming back later tonight at midnight. So if you're looking forward more to that live stream, come then. And lessons as well will be coming out, a new video coming out Friday, and we're actually going to finally get into Haplogroup J, because I feel like it's important to know not just who is Haplogroup E, but also get into Haplogroup J, and to understand all of ancient Israel's neighbors, which would have been a plethora of haplogroups, but the main two being E and J. Check out this question. How come DNA is important when it comes to the so-called Kohanim J marker, but not important to the Kohanim E haplogroup markers to the Jews? That's a very interesting and good question. E to me, I feel like it's actually really interesting how the Samaritan Jews actually have 100% of haplogroup E, but 0% haplogroup J. But I feel like the simple way to answer that question is politics. Um, it's just simply politics when it comes to pushing one haplogroup over the other, particularly haplogroup J over haplogroup E, because there is a significant amount of Jewish people with haplogroup E. Sephardic Jews have around 20 to 30% haplogroup E. As I said, Samaritans have 100%. Ashkenazi Jews 15 to 20% or 25%. So yeah, that's the best way I can answer that. It's a bit political, and which I'm not going to get into Israeli politics, but that's kind of why one is kind of seen over the other. So let's see. Yes, Zafora J is next, and we're going to do a very deep dive of haplogroup J. Um, it's a very complex haplogroup. Presentation is definitely going to be long, just like the E videos, and going to really try to hammer in its biblical origins, but also its academic origins. So yeah, let's see. This question. We need to know haplogroup E1, B1A, brother. Come on, we need to know what it is. Yeah, we are definitely going to get into haplogroup E1, B1A. We're going to get into Niger Congo people, and people who are in Western and Central Africa today. We'll touch more on them when we get to the Israelites, because there are some very interesting things concerning E1B1A people in ancient Israel, but I'm not going to get too deep into it now because it's a special presentation. I'm also working on this presentation with Divine Prospect at Kingdom Harbinger Ministries, because we're putting together a really massive presentation for this. And I'm going to be dealing with the DNA aspects, and he's going to be dealing with the cultural aspects. But just wait for that. Once I'm done with haplogroup J, I will finally get into who are the Israelites from a genetic point of view, beginning in ancient times. As y'all know from my videos so far, I love dealing with ancient populations rather than modern populations. So I'm going to look into the Israelite genome from an ancient perspective and see who these people are. Let's see, what is this? I have one of those. Oh, you have one of those Kohanim markers. That's awesome. Yeah, Kohanim, descendant of Levi. That's very important. Very good. A very easy way to and very quick way to prove that you're Israel. J and E rolled together quite frequently, I believe. Yes. Uh, there's actually maps I've made in the past, and I might bring them together soon in the future videos. But haplogroup E and J most definitely overlaps with one another, and you often find haplogroup E and J together. In a sense, they're almost like brothers, even though they're not from a phylogenetic tree perspective. They're actually quite far apart. They're not nowhere close to being brothers, but they're so close to each other when it comes to human populations that it's amazing because they overlap one another. And in the Middle East, obviously, you find E and J markers in North Africa, Eastern Africa, the Mediterranean. You find E and J markers among the exact same population. Greeks and Ethiopians and North Africans and Arabians, etc. Both they have both E and J, and it's interesting to see how tightly knit and intertwined they are. What's this question? I think E and T have a tight, yeah, E and T has another tight connection. We do see T among a lot of Somalians. A lot of the Somalian tribes, I think it's called the Isak. Excuse me for my mispronunciation. But there's a lot of Somali clans with the T marker, and we do see the T marker as well in ancient Levantine remains and other Middle Eastern uh, localities. So yes, E and T and J are all very tightly knit. Not just E1B1A. Yeah, tell me what other topics you want me to get into besides E1B1A. I can try to touch on different stuff, different people groups, different haplogroups, different language groups. Uh, yes, Divine is. Yeah. I Divine is very knowledgeable when it comes to understanding ancient ancient Semitic and Hebrew culture. Let's see, what's this? E1B1B seems to be everywhere. Many. All right, so E1B1B seems to be everywhere. Maybe ancient Judean Empire related. What do you think? I don't believe every single person with E1B1B would be Judean. As we know, Shem had a lot of kids. Specifically, our had a lot of kids, a lot of descendants. So there can be various branches of Shem's descendants could be can be E markers. Not all of them, not every single person with the E marker would be an Israelite, because Israel had a lot of cousins and stuff of that nature. But with some of these E markers spread around Africa and the Mediterranean, yes, they can be Israelites. That's where looking into the culture comes into play. No disrespect, but even B1B people seem to fit Esau. Even B1A seem to be Israel. I could be wrong. Yeah, even B1A, even B1B, they're actually tighter knit than we think. I would say that I do believe that Esau would come from a branch of E1B1B. There's a very specific branch that perfectly fits Esau, but I'm not going to get into that now. I have a presentation that will come out soon dealing with Esau, and that branch of that particular clade of E1B1B is it's very interesting where it ended up in the world and the people who have it. But as far as E1B1A being Israel, it's another good possibility. We're going to look at various models, not just one, when it comes to figuring out who are the Israelites. I believe it's good to have multiple models and to be open minded and to try not to be, biased in thinking. That's what I really try to do. It's difficult, but we're going to look at everything there is to look at. Let's see. I think the E1B1B1 among the Beta Israel is highly significant to answer if uh, Abraham was E1B1B1 or E1B1B. Yeah, I know a few Hebrews who have a model that Abraham is E1B1B1. And I would say, like I said, I have various different models when it comes to looking at Abraham's haplogroup, the Israelites haplogroup, stuff like that. One of my models could be that Abraham is E1B1. That's not a bad model. I think that could be possible, but there are other models and ways we should look at it as well. So yeah, that's a very interesting one. This is it true that they discovered C haplogroups with the app? I have not read any papers of C haplogroups with the app positive, but if you can shoot me a the article, I will be sure to read it and come back to you with a proper answer. Let's see. A genome of the Khazar Empire, please. Is that a paper, Shari, or is that a YouTube video? I'll check it out. Well, you can just put it into the chat. Did the let's see? Did the Natufians practice skull worship? And then what was there? We don't know too much about the complete religion of the Natufians and everything that they practiced. Um, More and more, though, people are digging in Israel, trying to uncover more about the Natufians. What we do know is that they were one of the last hunter gatherers of the Middle East, that they were some of the world's first farmers, which I find to be very interesting and very important because we know that Israel, ancient Israel as a society, they were an agriculturalist and pastoralist people, and the fact that the Natufians are that one of the first people to do that is very, very interesting to me. I would say that Natufians would be the ancient ancestors of the Israelites, being the very first Asiatic peoples uh, who are pastoralists and farmers. And also we know that according to scripture, uh, Noah got drunk when he was planting grapes. So I do believe Natufians will fit that bill. Natufian culture went from the southern Levant all the way up into Anatolia. So it's fairly interesting to me. Let me see more of these comments. Aaron Elkhike says Abraham. Yeah, I saw that paper. I should have mentioned it in the videos, but I had already like made the videos. But in future videos, I'll bring out that article where he does say yes, Abraham was E1B1, which is very powerful, very good information to substantiate our claim that E is Semitic, that it is likely the Y chromosome of the Israelites. No matter what clade they would descend from, it's likely that one. Yeah, let me put the link. I'll put the link into the chat here in a second. But let me quickly do this real quick. I'm gonna let some of Yap Gang on the panel here, going on 22 minutes. Just gonna put this, and then y'all can send it to each other via email. All right, I sent the link. So let me read some more of your questions. Video request. Let me see. What is it? I was asking, can you do a presentation? Can I do a presentation on the genome of the Khazar Empire? That would be very, very interesting. We do need to look into who the Khazars are if we're going to claim certain people are Khazars. I think it would be wise to understand the genome and the history of the Khazars if we're going to make these claims about certain ethnic groups. So yes, that would be a very, very good presentation. And I will do an extremely deep dive into the Khazars, their origins, where they come from, and break that down. It will be a while, though, until we get to them. We'll kind of briefly touch on them when we get to Haplogroup J, but yeah, that'll be pretty good. This question is, hey, bro, how about the Canaanites? Are they Hamites? So when they fall under Haplogroup A or B, I was thinking they were the Pygmies in Africa. Personally, when it comes to the Canaanites, and this is going to be a very deep topic, and trust me, we will get to the Canaanites. But when it comes to the Canaanites, really that term Canaanite is a general term for people who lived in the region of Canaan. Even in academia, they call Israelites, Moabites, Edomites, Midianites, all these other ites, Canaanites, even though we know from scripture that Edomites, Ishmaelites, Midianites, etc., aren't Canaanites, they're Semitic people. One thing about the land of Canaan is that there were various ethnic groups living there with various languages that weren't Semitic. And when we look into the remains of some of these people, they are the Canaanites of Scripture. But when you look at their genome, they wouldn't be what you would call a Hamite. They aren't A markers or B markers. They're a particular haplogroup that is quite dominant in the Middle East today. But these Canaanites, I feel like the term Canaanite may actually just refer to a geographical region of typical peoples, kind of like American is just a general name. So I feel like the Canaanites would be those nations that weren't supposed to be in the land but were in the land, and Israel was sent to destroy. As an example, that when it comes to the Canaanites being a multitude of different ethnic groups, the Hittites are mentioned as Canaanites. But if you look into history and archaeology, the Hittites are actually an Indo-European people in Anatolia, but yet they're mentioned as Canaanites. And so I feel like that's partly evidence that this is an amalgam of different people. Same thing with Amorites. Amorites are a Semitic people. They're Semitic speakers in history. So you have Amorites and Hittites both under the blanket of Canaanite. These are just nations who are in the land of Canaan that shouldn't have been, and Israel was tasked to destroy. So I feel like calling all Canaanites Hamites would be incorrect. I feel like you could say it this way: there are Hamites in the land of Canaan, but there are also Semites in the land of Canaan, as well as Japhites in the land of Canaan. All Canaanites wouldn't be Hamites, but you do have Hamites that are Canaanites, something like that. Um, see what other questions y'all have. I was on that one for a very long time. Let's see. Esau is fascinating. He migrated far away from Jacob. Yeah. Esau's descendants did migrate very, very far out of the Middle East, even, and his people, just like their father, they were hunters. They were explorers. They definitely took a leap of faith going from their homeland to other people's lands. Yeah, definitely. Let's see. Praise. I think I'll do this for a while. Yeah. I feel like Aaron has a great wealth of information. Everything I don't agree with everything he says, but when it comes to some of the things he say, he definitely is on point. Um, but yeah, some of that comment goes a little bit into the politics, but yeah, I feel like he has some good information. Did Natufians speak a Proto-Afro-Asiatic language? Yes, you do have. There's various linguists and archaeologists that say that that the Natufians were Proto-Afro-Asiatics or Proto-Afro-Sans, and they would have been the first speakers of the Afro-Asiatic language, which makes a lot of sense to me. We see this in their farming lexicon when it comes to the words. We see this and the things they left behind when they died and their pottery and such. So yeah, enjoyed the interview and the production with Rabbi Road today. Yeah. It was a really good interview. I feel like everything went well. Thank you, by the way. He will be coming back later tonight at around midnight. So midnight Central Standard Time. So look out for that. Um, But yeah, it was a really great build. Hopefully, we can answer your guys' questions. I already had questions for the rabbi, so I had to get through that first. But maybe we can get to y'all's questions next. Let's see. What time frame do you estimate that Yap inserted fix into the? Ooh, that's a good question. I feel like I should just go straight to the paper. I think it was about 70,000 years ago, if I remember off the top of my head, 70,000 or 8,000 years ago. So I would just go with what the paper said instead of go with my own interpretation. The only time I do make an interpretation when it comes to these haplogroups is when I use a young Earth. And so from a young Earth perspective, I would say DE would have popped up shortly after the flood. That would be my model personally. Give me a quick second here. I need to actually send this link out to a friend. And then I can get back to y'all's questions. Let me just quickly do this for a second. Give me a second here. All right, sorry about that. Had to quickly handle something. Let's see. Okay, that was great. What? All right, here's a question. So, what would be ancient Egyptian haplogroup? So, I believe that the ancient Egyptians are the Proto-Mizraim, is how I would term it, because ancient Egyptian is super complex. It is that it was an empire. It was complex. So, I would say when it comes to a Proto-Mizraimian, a person who would descend directly from Ham, son Mizraim, I would say, from what I'm looking at personally, again, this is my personal opinion. What I'm looking at, I would give it an A marker. I would say that will be haplogroup A. We actually have looked and found some ancient pre-dynastic remains, and we did find some A markers. And I also believe that Ham, all of Ham's sons, genetically would have been very similar. Uh, Cush, they all would have been very genetically similar. So I would say A for ancient Egyptians, but specifically Proto-Mizraimians, or the descendants of Mizraim from Ham. Ancient Egyptians in general would have had a bunch of different haplogroups, A, J, even E, because it was an empire and different ethnic groups were living in it. Around the time of the New Kingdom Egypt, actually, there was a peace treaty between Egypt and the Mitanni, as well as the Hittite Empire. And they traded daughters and they mixed with one another. The Hittite treaty with the Egyptians was because of the Battle of Kadesh. There was a lot of conflict. And then there was, an empire, an imperial decree to join the princes and princesses of the Mitanni with the Egyptians. And so, there was definitely mixing with these Egyptian populations and these Asiatic populations to the northern area of the Middle East. So at that point, you're going to have a lot of different people with different haplogroups, both mitochondrial and Y. So ancient Egypt is complex like that. So who are the macrobites? I've looked into the macrobites. They're supposed to be like an ancient, very tall Somalian people. Biblically, who I believe they are, they just my best guess, they could be Hamites. So they could be T markers, just ancient Puttites, or well, actually, they could be A markers. Sorry, ancient Puttites that were just dwelling in the Horn of Africa. A lot of people don't know, but there was definitely A markers in ancient Horn of Africa. There was at one point Nilo-Saharan type peoples, Nilotic peoples. If so, A. Okay. Let's see. Why did E1B1A become Niger Congo speakers instead of Afro-Asiatics? Good question. There's various reasons and ways that certain haplogroup people with certain haplogroups languages can change or shift or adopt different languages. One could be that their language, Niger Congo, is a mixture of different languages, or it could because they could have spoken just giving hypotheticals right now. The ancestors of Niger Congo people could have spoken an Afro-Asiatic language, and then when mixing with Pygmies and Khoisan, perhaps words and sounds and just everything started to merge together to become the Niger Congo language. Because we do find a lot of interesting loan words in Niger Congo. There's been reports of like Egyptian in it and stuff and languages like that. And Egyptian obviously is an Afro-Asiatic language, so there's you can make an appeal to that as to why Niger Congo speakers speak Niger Congo, even when people speak Niger Congo instead of Afro-Asiatic. Could be a blend of two different languages or three different languages, or they could have adopted Niger Congo from the indigenous populations in Western and Central Africa. Or, there's a lot of different ways. We'll actually touch on that deeper in the video. I'm trying to beat around the bush so I don't give it away, but let's see. I think the original Canaanites were absorbed by other male lineages because there is still males with E. Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, that's definitely a high possibility as well. I know some people do believe that Canaanites would have been A or B markers, and that's definitely highly plausible. We just have to define ancient remains, though. That's my only thing. I like dealing with the ancient world because when dealing with modern populations, things change and shift so much. So, I would like to find some, in order to confirm that for myself, I would like to find some remains of A and B markers among Canaanite graves. But that's definitely a high plausibility. I wouldn't deny that. The only thing that seems to make sense is a DE split. Oh yeah, so I do believe DE could have split in the Arabian Peninsula. That's very, very highly plausible. Personally, for me though, I would say DE split in Mesopotamia and Iraq, with E going into deeper parts of Arabia, the Levant, and the rest of the Middle East, whereas D would go east into Iran and then eventually from Iran to India and Central Asia and, spread out from there. But Arabia is also very nice because we have found D samples among Arabians and also, I believe, among some Syrians. So that's very interesting. The link is incomplete. Give me a second, you guys. I'm going to resend the link because I believe I typed something in wrong. Give me a second. All right, I resent the link, and I'll also put the link in the chat here in a second, just in case it doesn't work. It's my first live stream, so things are a bit new to me. Forgive me, but let's see. That could be true because BT was found among ancient Philistines. Ah, interesting. Okay. Shalom, Sean. Just reading out a few questions.
Shalom, fam. Give me 1 second.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Yeah. I actually will put the link here in a second. Are the pygmies Kush? That's a good question. Pygmies could be Kush. They also could be Punt. But I see no problem. Yeah, I see no problem with certain pygmy tribes because there are different pygmy tribes. Certain pygmy tribes descending from Kush because Kush did have various sons. He had a lot of sons. Some of his sons we know nothing about. So that could be the pygmy tribes that the Israelites knew nothing about. So Get to the next question. Was Nebuchadnezzar a descendant from the seed of Solomon? He was Chaldean. Um, well, I don't believe personally that Nebuchadnezzar was the descendant of King Solomon because I never read that in any ancient documents or even modern history. From my understanding, Nebuchadnezzar was just an Assyrian. You can make the uh, the case that he would descend from Shem, but descending from King Solomon, I wouldn't think so because just based on the time frame, I mean the time period, they were very close in that Iron Age time period. So I don't think that they'll be son and father.
Yeah, I'm back, bro.
All right.
All right, so yeah, somebody had said in the chat a little earlier that Yap Plus was found among Haplogroup C. I never heard that before.
Yeah, me
I was
neither.
wondering if they have a link to a particular article or study that maybe we could go over, and they could just drop it in the chat because I never heard that one before.
Yeah, whoever made that comment about C being Yap, definitely drop the study into the chat so I can take a look at it. Because that genetically is technically impossible, but I like to read it. Let's see. I said the same thing. Their ancestors had spoke. All right, I said the same thing. Their ancestors had to speak, had to, speak Afro-Asiatic languages, but due to mixing, their languages just changed. Yeah, yeah, that's a high possibility, I would say. I mean, after all, Ramses the Third, his father, obviously, because haplogroups are passed down from father to son, as well as Ramses' sons. You know, they would have had haplogroup E, but they were they would have Egyptian culturally and by nature. So they're not Niger Congo speakers. So let's make the assumption that Ramses went into Africa and his sons, his language could have changed and shifted. That's definitely an interesting model that I have. But like I said, I have various different models. But yeah, that's definitely high plausibility. Niger Congo being a mix of different languages. Was Nimrod a Hamite? Apparently, he described Abraham as being commonly his first sight seeing him. I believe that Nimrod was a Hamite based on what the scriptures say. It says that he was the son of Cush. So, yes, I believe that Nimrod was a Hamite. I can let you tackle that question as well, Sean, if you're there.
Oh, I didn't hear the. What was you say? I was talking to my daughter. What did you say, bro?
Someone has a question. I gave my belief. Was Nimrod a Hamite? I believe he was based on scripture, but you can tackle that as well if you got a different
Yeah,
point of view.
no, I agree. He would be. He came from the line of Cush, so he was Cush's grandson, if I'm not mistaken, according to scripture. So yeah, he would be a Hamite.
All right. Next question or statement. The Niger Congo languages is very young group. Yeah, the Niger Congo languages is very young, extremely young, which like it doesn't even go back to the Bronze Age. So it's like these Ewumbie people speaking this fairly young, this very old haplogroup speaking a fairly young language. It's kind of weird. Like the Scythian language in ancient Eurasia is older than the Niger Congo language. Like Greek is older than the Niger Congo language. So it's like, what's going on here? You can tackle that statement or question as well if you want, Sean.
Yeah, no, I agree with Ahaya as well as your statement. There's really nothing to add to that.
Okay.
It's a phenomenon. You know what I'm saying? It's a phenomenon. Definitely.
Yeah. Time and proximity. Can you clarify a little bit? What made Joseph so different to the Egyptians in appearance when he rose up as a prince or as a vizier? I feel like that'll be the more accurate term. He was vizier or vizier. But anyways, uh, well, for one, what made Joseph different in appearance could be that, for one, Asiatics had beards. They're known for not cutting their face, whereas the Egyptians, they took pride in having a clean shaven face. They didn't like beards. Also, Asiatics were shepherd people. The Egyptians hated shepherd people for some reason, even though they hired them to like carry their flocks, which is weird. But I feel like little things like that would have made uh, Joseph different in appearance to the Egyptians, and also Joseph would have spoken Hebrew. He would have spoken his Semitic tongue, and the Egyptians would have spoken their tongue. So when Joseph is speaking to them, he's going to sound different. Even when he learns the Egyptian language, he's still going to have an accent. Just like when an Arab person speaks English, they have an accent, or when an Israeli speaks English, they have an accent. To an Egyptian, when Joseph is speaking, he's going to have an accent because Joseph, his whole life, grew up speaking a Semitic language. So little things like that is something you have to think about when it comes to those little nuances. You can tackle that as well, Sean, if you want. And
Yeah,
also,
no,
his clothing as well. I want to mention that his clothing would have been different from the Egyptians too.
yeah. I think that the only thing to me that would probably set him apart, he might have been a little lighter. And I don't mean like European looking or very light skin. I just, from an Asiatic and African sense, he might have been a shade tone lighter, little lighter brown than the average Egyptian, as well as outside of that, there would be the only way you would be able to tell them apart is through genome. Like, it's really you couldn't tell them apart. His brothers didn't recognize him. It's very possible that he might have shaved his beard because so was the custom of the Egyptians at the time. So he might have cut his beard, which would have, because that would have been a dead giveaway probably if they seen their brother and he had the beard. So it's possible that may have happened. All this is postulation though. But for me, it would just, it's more genome than anything else.
Facts, facts. I'll put the link here in a second. We're going to read some more of y'all's questions, and I'll drop the link. R1B males and Chad speak in Afrojack language, and some J males speak Semitic. Yes, you are correct. You do have Chadic people with R1B that speak Afroasiatic, as well as males with J that speak Semitic. That's very true. Uh, of course, from my videos, um, people can speak various languages and have different haplogroups, especially today. But my thing always is who was the first people who spoke these languages? Who was the first proto Afro-Asiatics? Who was the first proto Semitic speakers? And that would be, from my research, that would be E markers. But today, yes, I would not deny that you do have people with J, people with R1B that speak Afro-Asiatic and Semitic languages. No different than how we speak English, even though we're not genetically English people. But the first English, like the proto-English people, the Anglo-Saxons, most of them would have been I and R markers. But yeah, going to the next question. I found your channel just yesterday researching some things. Happy to be here. I'm sorry. No, it's all good. It's all good. There's going to be another live stream later tonight around midnight. So just be ready for that. I am Central Standard Time. So you can be there for that one when I start that one. R1B is heavy in the yeah, R1B is definitely heavy in Lake Chad and Sudan. It's likely that R1B came into Africa with Eurasian peoples that were basically, trading and migrating and trying to find living space. Africa has always been just a rich, fertile land, and so a lot of these R1B markers in ancient times, I'm talking about probably the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, could have been coming into Africa, adopting the language of the indigenous people and marrying the women. And this is why you find these R1B markers in these areas of Chad. Like, personally, I would say that these R1B markers likely were Eurasian looking, were quite light skinned, but they intermarried with the indigenous African and Semitic and Afro-Asiatic populations, and obviously began to look like the people that they're around. So, going to the next question. Oh, yeah, also, you can answer some of these questions if you want. I kind of went over some, but this one particular one you see, you can just go ahead and shoot.
Yeah, no,
R1B.
you pretty much covered that. Me and Hadani, bro, shalom, bro, Hadani. We speak on we spoke over the phone before. He sends me little information when he gets it. Good looking up. And yeah, we spoke about that with R1B and Chad, and you know, how it ended up there. Uh, I'm at I can't really postulate on that. I know you probably a little bit more uh, and have more resources than I do to be able to answer that. But yeah, we spoke about that before, and he's right.
Okay. R1B among West African Fang. That's interesting. I haven't read that. I might have to do some deeper dives into the Fang or the Fong. Some people say it two different ways. But yeah, that's interesting. I have to look into that. I assumed that they would have had EMB1A or even A markers, but I definitely have to look into that. Very interesting.
Yeah, in my DNA when we went over mods, I have Fang, and a lot of my populations it came up as Fang, and I do not have R1B, so I don't know. I don't know if they actually do carry a lot of Fang do carry the R1B marker, but I'm E. So
Yeah, I have to look into that. It's highly likely that they would have had different haplogroups. If some people are saying that they're R1B and you have E1B1A, then you would descend from the population with E1B1A rather than with
right,
R1B.
because
But
they
we'll
could
have
have
to study that.
absorbed, they could have absorbed, other groups, other haplogroups that were around them as well.
Right, right. Just like the Limba and the Fulani and, etc. Let's see. I think the reason no E1B1A ruins have been found in modern Israel is because the modern looking is incorrect. If you look into the. Yeah, I would say based on a lot of archaeology, anthropology, linguistics, uh, cultural anthropology, that the land of Israel in the Levant would be the ancient land of of Israel. It's kind of hard for me personally to see Israel being anywhere else, just based on the city of David, Jerusalem, the Roman occupation there, the proximity of Egypt, the Amarna letters when the Canaanite kings were crying out for help of the Habaru attacking the Canaanite cities. The letters is probably one of the best evidence to prove the Exodus and to prove the that the ancient land of Canaan is in modern day Israel, because we literally have tablets of these Canaanite kings saying Habaru, Habaru, they're attacking us, they're attacking our cities, they're taking it over, we need your help. Like, that mirrors the conquest of Canaan by Joshua and the judges. Like, I feel like uh that's just really good evidence. And then of course with the Herodians and Herod, being the king of, well, not king, but ruling over Israel when of a Roman province. Like, there's just so much evidence that really points to modern day Israel being being ancient Israel. You can look at it from the ancient perspective, like I said, with the Exodus, all the way up into the Roman period. Um, just I feel like it fits better. Yeshua, of course, dying in Israel, like that kind of it's kind of hard to get around that. You can answer that question too if you want, Sean.
Okay, I'm sorry, I stepped away for a second. Yeah. But I'm gonna skip that one because I missed it. So go ahead,
Okay.
just go ahead, move on.
Was Havilah in the Genesis? Havilah is mentioned in Genesis. Yes.
Okay, I'm
Jewish
looking at the question now. They were saying that Israel, that A and B may not be being found in modern Israel because modern Israel, ancient Israel might not be where modern Israel is today. I can't rule that out. So yeah, I'm going to leave it alone though. But I can't rule it out. You may be right.
All right. All right. Next question. A Jewish traveler explained it in the 14. Um, can I have a little bit of clarity? I don't quite get the question. It seems that Canaan is the land of the Pygmies, which is West and Central Africa. Yeah, I've heard of that. Again, the only issue I would have with the land of Canaan being in West, Central, and South Africa is that the land of modern day Israel has a lot of the history of the ancient Israelites. Like I said, with the Exodus, we do have the Amarna tablets where Canaanite kings are crying out to the Pharaoh, saying that the Habaru are conquering their land. And we have evidence even from that time period, which is the Bronze Age, late Bronze Age, to antiquity, where we have King Herod ruling over Israel and having Roman provinces in Israel and the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. Like all that history in archaeology is in modern day Israel. I don't really see how Yeshua, he died in Israel. I don't really see where he would have died in West or Central Africa and how Christianity would have spread from West and Central Africa. Um, it was in Israel when the first and earliest churches were being established, and Paul and them traveled around the Mediterranean when they were going on their missionary trips. But I can let Sean tackle that as well if he wants. You there, Sean? Oh, dropped off. All right, go to the next question. Can you explain how people like Amorites are said to be Semitic, but they are Hamitic? Yeah, that's a good question. That's what I mean. The Amorites are supposed to be a Semitic speaking people, and yet it's said that they. Oh, Sean is back. But yet it's said that that they are from Ham. But I would say that when it comes to those nations of Canaan, that those are just different nations that came together, and that they are more so an amalgam, and that they spiritually embody uh Canaan, like the wickedness of Canaan, son of Ham, because all those nations mentioned in Canaan's lineage, they're all different ethnically. And so I would say that this is just an amalgam, like a spiritual a spiritual amalgam of evil nations, because all these nations mentioned in Canaan just did some very wicked bad things. Like the Hittites, Indo-European people of Anatolia, their city and capital was known as the land of a thousand gods. Like they worshipped and allowed anybody to worship a god. So that they were obviously very a wicked people, like Cain was to Ham. I can let you tackle that question if you want. You there?
Yeah. So I believe that in order for people have made this statement before, concerning different haplogroups that may speak Semitic languages. If you were under captivity, or you were a your nation was ruled by a Semitic people, it's very possible that you will have picked up the Semitic language. This would have been your way of communication. So it wouldn't be hard for the Amorites to pick up the Semitic language. Even especially if they were under the Akkadians.
Yep, yep. That's another very important point as well. Yep. Canaanite weren't Canaanites giants? LOL. Hardly pygmies. Yeah, yeah. Canaanites were supposed to have been giants, which pygmy is quite the opposite. So because you have the Anakim, the Zuzims, the Emims, the Raphaims, and the Nephilim, and all those were supposed to have been giants, and pygmies are dwarfs. So it is uh, quite literally the opposite. So yeah. Did you want to tackle that question?
Nah, you did a good job.
All right. I think Nebuchadnezzar was a Gutian. Hey, that's a high plausibility. We know that the Gutians conquered Akkad, and it was known as the Dark Age of Mesopotamia. And it was about a century or so, maybe a little bit over, that the Gutians had rule over the Akkadian Empire. And so, yeah, some Mesopotamians like Nebuchadnezzar could descend from Gutian. That's very plausible. I think according to scripture, it said that he's an Assyrian, but still, he still could have a Gutian ancestor. Did you want to tackle that?
Yeah, I lean toward that too. I
Okay.
lean toward that answer.
I believe Kush was E-M13 because 41% of lost Jews. Yeah, Kush can definitely be A-M13. I think that one has even seen parts of the Middle East, which is interesting. So, yeah, the fact that a lot of Ethiopian Jews do have A markers is very very fascinating. I feel like that's a reason why a lot of people do typically say that, oh, the Ethiopian Jews, they're converts because they have the A marker, and it's like they do have a very high percentage of A. I believe that A is significant when it comes to our understanding that King Solomon got with Queen Sheba. She ruled over both the Yemen and the Horn of Africa. I believe the Horn of Africa was a place where there was a lot of colonies of Sabaeans, and with this trade network being set up, you would have had a lot of Falasha. Oh, excuse me, that's a derogatory word. Actually, they don't like being called Falasha. Beta Israel, a lot of Beta Israel converting to Judaism or Hebraic culture, and really to a greater extent, we could even say Beta Israel goes as far back as the Exodus. There would have been A markers with the Israelites going into the land of Canaan uh, to um, to get rid of the Canaanites and to join the nation. So Beta Israel could even descend from ancient Nubian peoples that were with Israel during the Exodus. So those two time periods, the Exodus and Queen Sheba, are highly plausible ways for A to have entered the Israelite nation and the ancestors of Ethiopian Jews. You can tackle that question too if you want, Sean.
Yeah, I think that makes sense as well. I haven't really dug into that one, but it does make sense. It's plausible.
Mm-hmm. Pygmies have to be Canaanites because the Canaanites were prophesied to be slaves to the slaves. Yeah, yeah, that is a very interesting thing. The pygmies have there are people that have been brutalized for a long period of human history. Actually, in the Old Kingdom period of Egypt, we actually do see that pygmies were part of the Egyptian population, and that they were dancers. Uh, so things like that could allude to the fact that pygmies are possibly Canaanites. But my only thing is which son of Canaan. Like if we're taking the sons of Canaan to be literal, which son of Canaan would the pygmies descend from? Because, like I said, those are a lot of different nations, different ethnic groups. Like pygmies couldn't be the Hittites because Hittites are Indo-European, Anatolian people. So it's like which son? And the Amorites, they're a Semitic speaking people. So it's like which son of Canaan would pygmies descend from if we were to take that part literally. But did you want to tackle that question?
Yeah, Ron Dalton had posed that as well. In one of his videos.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a problem with that. So yeah, again,
Yep.
very possible.
Yep. All right. Nebuchadnezzar are among the four humans who have ruled the entire earth. Must be a great being, warrior king. Yeah, warrior kings. They're typically great conquerors. You have Nebuchadnezzar. He managed to take a huge chunk of the Middle East. You have Alexander the Great. His empire stretching from the Balkans all the way to northern India. You have uh, Ramses the Third, Tutmosis the Third. Their empire stretched from Nubia and Sudan all the way up to northern Levant and Syria. You have the Mongol Empire. A lot of these people who took large swaths of land were great warrior kings. So yeah, Nebuchadnezzar would definitely be among them.
Yeah, props to the Warrior Kings.
Yeah. Lionfarm had the study. Tell Lionfarm to send me the study then. I'll take a gander at it. Take a look at it. Nama was worshipped by both Babylonians and Assyrians, and during Nebuchadnezzar's time, the invaders from the Zarkos Mountain. Yeah, yeah, the Gutians. Yeah, I'm actually going to take a look into the Gutians when they came into Mesopotamia and ruled over the Akkadians. Really, they collapsed the Akkadian Empire, which is funny because they were barbarian people from the mountains, and Akkad was like extremely strong nation that actually conquered the Sumerians. But what's interesting about the Gutians is that they use hit and run tactics to basically destroy various cities and strongholds of the Akkadians, and that's how they were able to sort of take over. But there's also another model that Gutians were already in Akkadian society to a certain extent, and so kind of like the Hyksos, they kind of managed to take it over. But it does seem like it was through warfare for the most part that the Gutians were able to conquer Akkad. Um, but what did you want to go into that? Uh,
Now you
Sean?
can move on. Yeah, you covered that good. Can move on.
All right. What do you think about the Shroud of Turin? I feel like the Shroud of Turin, from what I remember, it was a fabrication. It wasn't real. But there's also a perspective that the Shroud of Turin could just be some other person. Like crucifixion was a bit common more than we think. Various criminals were crucified during the Roman Empire. So the Shroud of Turin could just be some random dude. That's why I'm hesitant to say that the Shroud of Turin is Yeshua, because how do we not know if we're comparing this Shroud of Turin to some like some pedo or some murder, Like we don't know
Yeah,
what that is.
yeah. He could have been a knight. You know what I mean? He could have been a Templar. He could have been, he could have been a number of different individuals.
Yeah, so it's like I can't say that that's Yeshua, that's a little dangerous personally. So you said that the Macabites were ancient Hamite Somalians, but modern Somalians carry Umbi1A. That's it. Yeah, a lot of Somalians do have UMB1B, but they also have haplogroup T. Various clans have T, and you can also find haplogroup A among some. I would say that a lot of Horn Africans, and you can check out my video. Just going to show y'all. You can check out this video right here. This playlist starting from Eber and Azurat, who are the descendants of Cush, to Joktan, son of Eber, to Sheba, son of Joktan. Check out these three videos because they basically cover how Joktanites would have came into the Horn of Africa slowly over the centuries, and they would have, populated that region. So some Somalians could be descendants of Joktanites. And genetically speaking, Somalians are half Eurasian and half African. Did you want to tackle that question?
Nah, you covered that good. You covered it good.
All right. I believe Joseph. I believe Joseph is Osiris in the Egyptian language. I don't know. I have to look into that. That's very interesting. If you can send me some information on that, I can look into it. I have my own thoughts on who Joseph was. There's a very interesting tomb or sarcophagus, should I say, that we found that could be Joseph. I'll cover that when we get to the Israelites. Who are the Israelites? But that's very interesting. I've never heard of Joseph being Osiris. But when I bring out my presentation on Joseph and the vizier that he could have been in Egyptian history, I feel like that'd be pretty good thing to cover. Did you have anything on this?
Yeah, no, the video. I think that who was it? Was it you that sent that video in Telegram concerning that particular tomb that you're talking about? In the Telegram, it was really interesting. I think that if they, they haven't given us any more information, from them, but they have, postulated that it's possible. It possibly could be Joseph. I know which tomb
Mm.
you're talking about too. I forgot who said so. One of the fans sent it to us in Telegram.
Yeah, I have to go back to that video. I don't know if I sent it. It could have been Rue, but I have to be reminded of that.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's Rue. I was that's the name. That's I'm not sure though, but it's possible it was Rue.
Joseph apparently was given half of beauty given to the humanity. Interesting. I don't know. I don't know too much about Islamic uh Islamic lore concerning Joseph, but that's interesting. I have to look into that. I have a few Muslim friends, so I can ask them that. Uh,
Yeah, more would probably be able to elaborate on that one.
yeah. Were those so-called Eurasians you were speaking about also black at the time? Can you slightly clarify that the Eurasians with R1B or a different type of Eurasian? I want to make sure I answer your question properly. So I need a little bit of more clarification for that. Yes, Joseph was clean shaven. Yep, he would have been clean shaven to follow the customs of the Egyptians to respect their ways. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. But even on the Steelers, all of the on hieroglyphs and paintings of in Egypt of the slaves working making mud bricks, they all were clean shaven. So
Yep. Isaiah 11:11 is all about Yumbi. Interesting. Okay. I have to look into that verse. I think that's actually dealing with the scattering of Israel. I'll go ahead and type it in right now actually. Let's see. Isaiah 11:11. I'm just going to go ahead and do new new King. Believe that's dealing with the scattering if I remember. Yep, that's dealing with the scattering. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people who are left from Assyria and Egypt and Pathros and Cush and Elam and Shinar and Hamath and the islands of the sea. Powerful verse. I feel like that's definitely dealing with Israel. Now, whether it's E1B1B or E1B1A, I'm not going to get into, but yeah, that's dealing with the scattering of Israel. Somebody said shalom to you, Sean.
Yeah, that's bro Hadani. Shalom, shalom, bro.
So if the Mashiach is from the root of David, is that why Israel have a community of Ethiopians, as King Halasi claims ancestry? Personally, I don't know if Haile Selassie is from the lineage of King Solomon, at least not paternally. He had haplogroup T. Now, maybe maternally he could have, but I feel like when it comes to the descendants of King Solomon and Ethiopia, they would have carried E markers, and that there are Ethiopians who could have a lineage to King Solomon. Now, who are they? I have no idea. Personally, I feel like the lineage of King Solomon in Ethiopia would have been hidden, because this is the lineage of the root of King David. So I feel like that 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 we wouldn't know who it is, and that seems to be the tradition of a lot of these scattered Jewish groups who claim descent from King David, is that it's hidden, that they don't want to parade it because out of fear of like assassination of or ethnic cleansing of the lineage of David. Did you want to cover that?
Yeah, that, I agree with you because of his Y haplogroup, being T. I agree. Now, like you said, maternally, yeah, it's very possible, you know, but not patrilineally.
Yep. Either maternally or from the father's mother.
God.
Did Jokdun carry haplogroup D? Great question. I actually have a video covering Jokdun. Check it out right here. I will begin first with Eber and Azurad because Jokdun was the son of Eber. And then I'll go to Jokdun's son of Eber, specifically dealing with Jokdun. And then after that, I will go to Sheba, son of Jokdun. What a lot of people kind of forget is that Jokdun actually had a Sheba as well, just like Ham. And I believe that the Sheba from Jokdun was the one that King Solomon got with. But Sheba comes from Jokdun, and so does a Havilah, just like Ham, and so does an Ophir. And I believe that the Jokdanites and the Hamites often intermix with one another, and they live generally in the same locality, which is why they share a lot of similar names and tribal names, because they're kind of planted on top of each other in a way. With that being said, I don't believe that Jokdanites would be D, because D is mostly in Asia, specifically Southeast Asia and Central Asia. Uh, I would say that Jokdun would be haplogroup E. So, did you want to tackle that?
Yeah, 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 I think your presentation you did on it was really good. I think that I I would agree with the what you put down in the presentation.
All right. Was Alexander the Great dark in complexion? It's kind of interesting. I was talking to a friend about Alexander the Great, and she said that he actually had, like, I think it was rosy blonde hair, which is interesting. So he may have been like kind of Germanic looking, maybe. I mean, looking at the geography and the geographical location of Albania, because Alexander the Great was Albanian. He wasn't actually a true Greek. Albanians I hate to say it this way, but Albanians kind of wish they were Greek. They're not Greek by technicality. So Alexander the Great, with him being Albanian, but being very close to Germany, he could have had a slightly mixed heritage because apparently he might have been like a rosy blonde, which is interesting. Did you want to cover that?
Yeah, I just to touch on it a little bit. There has been talk out there that Agamemnon now would have been of darker hue, as opposed to Alexander the Great. So
Mm,
that's the talk
mm,
that's out there. So
interesting.
I'll leave it at that because I don't know what Agamemnon's haplogroup is. I don't know anything about him in that sense, but among certain circles, this is what they say from Agamemnon down to around Agamemnon. They would have been a darker hue, but Alexander the Great, no.
Yep, yep, yep. The Fong do have R1B, E, and B lineages. Okay, so they're mixed. Yeah, yeah. Okay, they're a mixed group of people. All right. Yeah, the Fang are a lot of people I know are starting to come out with Fang. It's a very interesting tribe to look into. Look into their Hebrewisms. What did they practice? For them being a mixed group, that's very interesting. Most likely R1B-V88 came from West Africa with Umbu. Yeah, I actually have been wondering to myself, could R1B, specifically V88, came with E1B1A? Because we know, according to the tradition of the Limba, that they would have been a mixture of E and J markers. So could have E1B1A and R markers travel together? Highly plausible. I mean, E1B1A and RV88 look very similar to each other. They both have a typical Negroid morphology, so it's highly plausible that they could have been one single people. And if we're going to look at this from the perspective of ancient Israel, we know that there would have been a lot of different people among them, and so that would even include R markers. So that's very highly plausible. Yeah. Let's see. What haplogroup does the Hausa fall? Oh, the Hausa fall under a lot of haplogroups. They have UMB1A. They have R. I think there's even reports of them having J, but I know they have A and B. But the Hausa have a lot of different haplogroups, and it says when I did my admixture on Jet Match, I came back heavy markers for uh, so yeah, yeah, a lot of African Americans, well, maybe not a lot, but there are African Americans that would have Hausa and Fulani ancestry, and those groups are very interesting to me. I'll explain why later. But yeah, the Hausa and the Fulani, there definitely would have been on those ships just as much as the Igbo and the Yoruba and the Ashanti. And a lot of them, like I said, Hausa and Fulani both, they have a mixture of haplogroups, no different than the Limba, which is very interesting. They have Hausa and Fulani have E, R, J, T, no different than the Limba, which shows a mixed multitude. So the Hausa and the Fulani are very interesting populations to look into uh, because you don't get that mixture of haplogroups out of nowhere. There's something there. So let's see. I think the Chad R1B is the true basal of melanated. Um, the Chad R1B is not the basal of of um of haplogroup R, because when it comes to the terminology, R1B, it is second. R1A is first, and R1A is typically seen in light-skinned Eurasian peoples. R was the typical haplogroup of the Yamnaya people. The Yamnaya are Proto-Indo-Europeans, and they would have been some of the first people to have light skin. It is highly likely that R1B was light skinned, like a Proto-Indo-European, but came into the Middle East and came into Africa and mixed with the darker skinned peoples. But R1B is a subclade of haplogroup R. So it's not the original haplogroup R. It's R1B. A comes before B. So did you want to tackle that question? Or any of the
Nah,
previous questions I've been kind of going through?
nah, you pretty much covering everything. If I need to jump in, I'll jump in on it.
Okay, okay. A coming savior of Islam is having a complexion of the Arabians in the body of an Israelite. Does this cover some reason? I do believe Arabians would have mixed with Israelites, especially with the Yemeni people. I have a Yemeni friend, a Yemeni Jewish friend, who is of a mixture of Joktanite and uh, Hebrew ancestry. So yes, there was a lot of mixture between Arabians and Israelites. After all, Arabians are cousins to the Israelites, whether they're Ishmaelites, they're literally cousins, or whether it's the Joktanites, which they are ancient cousins. Hausa and Fulani are mixed, depending on their. Yeah, Hausa and Fulani are definitely mixed, depending on where they are. Culturally, I think there's some variation between various Fulani tribes, depending on where they are in the world and their genetic makeup. Because we got Fulani all the way from West Africa and Senegal to as far as even East Africa and places like Ethiopia, and even in like Northern Africa and like Mauritania. They're very interesting, widespread people, House and Fulani. Uh, I think that's a question to Aya Ania. I guess he'll answer that question because that's not really to me. Ishmael. Yep, that's what I just said. Ishmaelites and Israelites definitely mixed. Yes. Proximity. It's kind of hard to mix, or it's kind of hard to not mix with people you're around, especially when you're dealing with young men in the ancient world or modern world. Havilah, back migrated. So, are you saying back migrated from Africa to Asia or from Asia to Africa? That's what I want to know. There is evidence that Assyrians migrated to sub-Saharan Africa and began the kingdom of. Oh yeah, I heard of it. Yeah, because yeah, I've heard about that. I think it was a German who actually came up with that. That some Assyrians came into sub-Saharan Africa and created a kingdom uh in North Central Africa, and I think it could be plausible. We do see a lot of Assyrians with haplogroup R, and we do see haplogroup R in West Africa. The only way we can connect, well, there's several ways that we'll have to connect the two. One being, do the Africans with R have the exact same R that the Assyrians of today have? Because there are different branches of R, just like there's different branches of E. And if they have the same marker, then maybe you can make an argument. Next, you have to look into the language, culture, the oral history, and stuff like that. But yes, I have heard of the idea of Assyrians making a kingdom within West Central Africa, and it's or not West Central Africa, North Central Africa. It's interesting. Uh, Definitely have to look deeper into it. I believe Canaanites adopted Semitic languages through intermixture with Semitic males with E lineages because they were the. Yeah, yeah. When I get to the Canaanites, we'll definitely touch on the idea of other populations in the land of Canaan, on the fact that ancient populations and people adopting Semitic languages and how women raise the children, and the children will grow up to be Semitic, even though they may not be Semitic in origin when it comes to their paternal line. So we'll definitely touch on that. I think we speak of two Canaanites, one old and one new, one Afro-Asiatic, with new arrivals from the Eurasian steppes. Yeah, that's another thing. That's another very good point. That's sort of what I mean by there's different Canaanite types, different types of Canaanite peoples. Because remember, Canaan, Canaanites is just a geographical term for people who lived in the land of Canaan. Because Israelites, Moabites, Edomites, Mennonites, Ishmaelites, they're all technically called Canaanites in academia, but we know that they're Semites. They're the descendants of Shem. Whereas you have other Canaanite peoples like Hittites who are Indo-Europeans, but they're not Semites. So Canaanite is a general term for people who live in the land of Canaan. So yeah, I agree that there is sort of like an old Canaanite and a new Canaanite, and different tribes. Yeah, 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 yeah. They don't like that term, but apology is accepted because I actually do have a little bit of I'm not going to go into that. Uh, my apologies to it. Yep. Us of diaspora DNA is mostly closely related to Limba. Do you have a video on it? Yeah, I'll actually touch on the Limba in the future. It will be a while, like as in don't hold your breath for a while. Um, but yeah, it is interesting. I am seeing that for some reason a lot of African Americans are connecting to Limba, and I have to look deeper into as to the reasons why. But yes, I've seen that, and it's extremely interesting. And I will touch on the Limba. They have a very interesting oral tradition. Facts in regards to the strategy. Yeah, yeah. We don't know who that man was. Dude could have been like a knight, as Sean said. It could have been a warrior. Could have been a wife beater. I don't know who that dude was. Anyways, so for are you certain? I don't know who that is referring to. That's a private conversation. My bad. E-M78 in Somalians as well. Yep, it is seen in Somalians. Definitely. I agree. Queen Sheba was a Joktanite. Yes, yes, I strongly believe Queen Sheba was from the lineage of Joktan rather than the lineage of Ham. But the descendants of both Joktan and Ham, Sheba of Joktan and Sheba of Ham, would have intermixed. So that's why I feel like they have the same name. It kind of shows commonality between the two peoples and possibly even the same geographical location between the two peoples. Let's see. So was Israel a homogeneous group, or did they? Oh, Israel would have been a makeup of a lot of different people over time, because we know for one that in the Exodus they left with a mixed multitude, which would have made up of various different groups in that locality. So very early on, genetically, you can make the case that there would have been different people groups, ethnic groups with Israel coming out of Egypt. So yeah, but I do believe that the Israelites, from a direct paternal line to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, would have been E markers. I do believe that though. What'd you say, Sean?
Yeah, and also like it does make sense that okay, so we're finding that because a lot of people use Deuteronomy 68, and we find that we have A on the ships, we have B one. So I would postulate that coming out of Egypt, once Moses sprinkled that blood, once they went under the oath with Israel, anybody who wasn't you know bloodline Israel, the nations that came out, the mixed multitude that came out, once they went into that blood contract, and when Moses sprinkled the blood, onto the people, you were under a blood contract, right? At that point, regardless to what your haplogroup was. So this is why you would be under any curse that befell Israel because you went into contract with them.
Yep, very powerful, and we'll touch more on that when we get to the Israelites, because that's extremely important to know and understand. That they were differently. Yep, yep, exactly that. Why DNA D is among the Andaman Islands, and interestingly, yeah, haplogroup D is definitely seen in various Asian populations. It's also seen in Tibetans. Tibetans have it, and yes, it's in the Andaman Islands among the Japanese. So that might explain why that that might explain why I like anime. No, I'm playing. Our Yap brothers.
I was about to, I was about to scream out, "Yap!"
Yep. All right, let's see. Israel started off homogeneous, and yep, that's it. They would have started off homogeneous, and then over time they would have diversified. That's the most logical way of looking at it. Same thing with really most of those Near Eastern populations. Uh, start off with one type of lineage, and then boom, a bunch of different ones coming in. All right, so from Alexander portrait, he was blonde haired. What? And yeah, Alexander. Yeah, there are some portraits of him, and yeah, even those portraits do sort of show him as a blonde-haired, white-skinned, blue-eyed, basically Germanic-looking boy. And and yes, you're right. He still could have carried a haplogroup E, even though he would have looked Germanic. Um, no different than Albert Einstein. But yeah,
Or our brother
Alexander
Yakov.
probably was. What you say?
I said, or like our brother Yakov.
Oh yeah, or like Yakov, like a lot of people. Yep. Og is. I don't know. I've been. Are you talking about Og from the scriptures? Og of Bashan. I'm not for sure. Can you clarify your question, please? Um, I do think haplogroups T, A, and B are part of the mix. Yeah, haplogroups T and A and possibly even B could have been part of the mixed multitude of the Exodus. Yes, for sure. It was
Yeah,
among.
I agree with that as well. I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah, it was among that time period and population of people. We do see a lot of Beta Israel with A, so it's highly plausible. Are the original Arab phenotype black? So the term black is a bit tricky. I would say that the original Arabs, the original Arabian population, would have looked like peoples of the Red Sea region, both sides of the Red Sea. So I would say that they would have been dark skinned, dark curly haired, and dark eyed. African, or wait, no, you said black. Excuse me. Black is tricky. I use the word dark skin, specifically dark brown. But yes, you could have had black skinned Arabians because all black skin is just a high amount of melanin, a high component of melanin. So that's highly plausible. Uh,
Mm.
phenotypically, using the term, I assume you're talking about negroid. Um, Honestly, I don't see too much of an issue with certain Arabians having more pronathanisms or more of a wide nose, depending on who they're with and things of that nature. So it's plausible, especially if you're going with, let's say, a young Earth and everybody's coming out of the Middle East, or if you're going with the old Earth and people are coming out of Africa. So both are highly plausible. Did you want to tackle that?
No, I just wanted to let the brother know, or I'm not sure. I hope I'm not being disrespectful. Jamal, I'm assuming it's a brother that we sometimes posing certain questions can be tricky to answer because we're especially when we're doing it through the chat and you can't really express yourself. But we try not to like use certain terms like social constructs, black, white, because it doesn't, from how we see things from a genetic lens, it's hard to answer a question when you pose it in that manner. So we got to start getting out of these social constructs and what the word, certain words that we use. I know it's hard because sometimes we still do it too, but yeah, it makes it like it's hard to answer the question when it's posed in a certain manner. So I just wanted to say that. That's for everybody in the chat.
Yes, definitely. The ancient Arabians were. Oh, I think that's a response to Jamar. The ancient Arabs was everything from very dark to very. Yeah, I agree. They would have been everything from very dark to light brownish. That is definitely something I can back. They were yeah. They would have had melanin. Correct. Can you point out? Wait, no. Can you point to any Jewish community in the world where the people have a history of following the Torah and observing the various festivals of Passover, Sukkot, who are known to have B1B or B1A? Well, easiest one, I can go to the Sephardic Jews. The Sephardic Jews have E1B1B. I've even heard of some reports of them having around 5 to 10% E1B1A. But Sephardic Jews practice Passover, they practice Sukkot. Ashkenazi Jews, they have E1B1B, and I heard some reports of them
Yeah,
having
some Semitic
uh
as well.
some,
Some Samaritans as well. Especially amongst the Levi, they're also so there would be another group that did practice. Even though it's a small number, of Samaritans that carry that. So they would be included in that group too. I didn't mean to cut you off, bro.
Yeah, definitely. The Samaritans from the tribe of Levi, Kohanim, they have 100% of E, and they would have they would of course practice Passover and Sukkot, and so there's really pretty much all of them. I would say pretty much all of them. Hausa and Fula are. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Hausa and Fula are in South Carolina. I have to look into that some more. That's cool. I'm Mende. Oh, you're Mende. Okay. All right. R1B is too old to be white. I mean, yeah, the haplogroup is definitely old. It's definitely ancient or beyond ancient. But white skin sort of came about around probably 10,000 to 8,000 years ago. So you would have had R markers light way back then. And what we also have to keep in mind is when did this particular subclade of R1B come in to Africa? Did it come into Africa when they were dark skinned, or did it come into Africa when they were light skinned? That's the question we have to ask ourselves, this time period. So when the R1Bs came into Africa, they could have been white. If you have a paper that tells us when R-V88 came into Africa, you can send me it. But from what I know, they likely would have been light skinned, but I could be wrong.
Hey,
Uh,
bro, my I'm down to like about 10%. How much longer we gonna keep going? Because I mean, I don't want to stop your flow. So if I drop off, it's because I ran out of juice over here.
okay. Yeah, you can probably yeah, yeah. Do what you can, do what you want. I'm probably gonna stay on a little bit longer. I'll put the link into the chat for other people to come, but yeah, I'm gonna
All
stay
right,
a
that's
little
cool.
bit
That's cool.
longer.
Let you know if I drop off. That and the audience. If you see me drop off and you don't hear from me and I drop off, it's because I'm down to like now it's at 8%. So I might be out of here real quick.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna get through some more of these comments and then probably end it. I'll probably go for like 2 hours and then end it. It's already an hour and 42 minutes. I think I read. Wait, did I read this? My study shows that Hausa and Fulani were a minority. Yeah, they probably would have been a minority. Hausa and Fulani, they definitely they were part of the people who were enslaved, but they kind of tried not to get enslaved, but they definitely would have been part of that population. Could Afro American Limba connections actually be Sephardic links? Seeing that they both broke off from the Babylonian captivity, Sephardim to Spain, Limba to Yemen. Hmm. My personal beliefs is that I haven't got to the Israelites yet in my presentations, so I can't outright say who is and who isn't an Israelite because I should technically break down my thoughts to all of this. So I'm just going to use a hypothetical. So, hypothetically, if I were to say African Americans were Israelites, I wouldn't say that they're Israelites by way of the Sephardic Jews. Personally, I would say, hypothetically, if African Americans were Israelites, if we were to look into how they're Israelites, they should look into the African tribes that they come from and look into the Hebrewisms within those tribes. That's the way I would go about things, rather than looking at the Sephardic Jews, since a lot of the Sephardic families we can still find today. Like, we kind of know who they are.
I lean more toward the Lemba connection being more closely related to the Samaritans. Uh, if you look at the genome between E, J1, J2, they both carry the same haplogroups, uh, the same markers. The reason I say that is because the Lemba's own tradition, oral tradition, says that they were expelled because of the marriages, because of the foreign marriages, and I believe that they're the offspring of these foreign marriages. And the Samaritans at the time were very heavy in the area from 7 was it 725 BCE down into about 500 to 400 BCE when the expulsion started. So I would say that's from my studies. When I do my presentation, I'll be able to like show um, all of this, in proper context.
Yep. Can't wait for that presentation. Y'all check out Sean's channel when it comes out. I'm going to try to premiere it on mine as well. But he's coming up with a awesome presentation dealing with various uh, people who are with Israel, and when it comes to the origins of a lot of the sects uh, that were in Israel. So be on the lookout for that. Jews believe the 10 tribes will return. Islam prophesied an undefeated army from North Pakistan, Afghanistan. That will take. Oh, that's interesting. I think you're talking about Majuji and Majuji and Ajuji. Excuse me for my mispronunciation, but basically Gog and Magog. That's interesting. I'll have to look more into the Islamic lore behind that end time event. But I personally do believe that all of the tribes of Israel will return to the land, um, because it's prophesied in the book of Ezekiel from chapter 37 through 40, and various other books like Isaiah 11:11 and so on and so forth. So probably interesting. I have to look into that. That's pretty cool. There's a new theory being espoused that the northern tribe of Israel was Canaanites and the southern Judea. It's an interesting theory. Um, by Canaanites, I just want a little bit clarity. Are you saying like, because I know people have different interpretations of Canaanites? Are you saying that from the lineage of Ham, or are you just saying an amalgam of different nations? When you say that the northern tribes were Canaanites and southern kingdom was Nubio-Egyptian. That's interesting. I've kind of heard of something like that. That people would say the southern area of Judea or southern kingdom of Israel would have been darker skinned due to their proximity being closer to Egypt, whereas the northern kingdom would have been closer to Syria, and so the people in southern part of Israel, Judea, would have been dark, whereas the people in northern Israel, the kingdom of Israel, would have been lighter. That's interesting way of looking at things. I have a little bit of a different model, but that's definitely something I've heard, and that's piqued my interest in certain issues. Uh, they're also found ancient DNA, and yes, they have found E markers in Pakistan. That is very true. They have found E markers there, and that was an interesting find. E is widespread, extremely widespread. Uh, the first king of Israel was a Cushite, King Solomon. Wait, King Saul. Wait, no, King Saul was called the right name. I don't know if the first king of Israel was a Cushite, but I do know what you're talking about with Zephaniah being called the son of a Cushi. And then Zephaniah's ancestry goes back to a king. But I will definitely say that there was Cushite people among ancient Israel. That's without a doubt. I mean, even if we were to go back to the time period of the Exodus, you would have had other Nile Valley African ethnic groups with the Israelites in the mixed multitude. So yes, I would say that there was Cushites among the Israelites. Cushites could have even intermarried into the kings of Israel. Um, but I don't know for sure if the first king of Israel was a Cushite, like in the sense of a 100% purebred Cushite. Perhaps some Cushite ancestry, but that is interesting. I know what you're referring to, but I have to do some more research on that. Whoa. Yes, I have sources in my videos. I tend to have the source to the left hand of the screen, and then the quote I'm reading on the right hand of the screen. But for oh wait, no, are you talking? You're talking to somebody else. Sorry, that's you actually tagged somebody else. My bad about that. I'll show the pastor or first. Interesting. I didn't know that. Okay. And that's a comment to somebody else, so I'm not going to read that. That's a comment to somebody else. All right. Just look like this. All right. Here's actual. All right. So, was there any difference in appearance between the Israelites and the Philistines? Uh, Goliath. We're struggling beating. Okay. Okay. From my understanding of the Philistines, they would have been a Greek people. They would have been from the Aegean. So, and I don't think Israelites were from the Aegean. So, I would say that the Israelites, in my mind, when the Israelites are fighting against the Philistines, I see Israelites fighting against Greek people, kind of like they're in the Hellenistic time period. So that's what I envision. Basically, sea Vikings that look like Mediterranean people. Don't the Limba Yes, the Limba have E1B1B. They even have E1B1A. They also have T, and they have J. And yes, those haplogroups are linked to Yemenite Jews. Yep. Limba appear to have. Yeah, it will make sense for the Limba to have traveled down the Red Sea. Um, the Horn of Africa and Eastern Africa was a hub anciently for a lot of sea travel. The Somalia once actually had a very powerful sea navy. Very. I mean, what they have today is just a shadow of their great empire of the sea. It was known as the Barbary Coast, and you can check that out. But yes, or even if you were to look into Queen Sheba and King Solomon, we know that there have been travel from Israel to the Horn of Africa. So Magog, Gog and Magog fit the description of Europeans. Uh, yeah, I do believe Gog and Magog would be Eurasian peoples, specifically Europeans. I don't know. I feel like Eurasian is a better term because it encompasses both Asia and Europe. So I would say that Gog and Magog would have been Eurasian peoples, possibly from the steeps or the steppes, as some people might say. All the 12 tribes are black. Interesting. Gog of Magog are true creatures. Okay. Oh, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about when Alexander the Great built the wall in the Caucasus to keep out a bunch of like barbarians. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's very interesting. I do not know. I do not know if that is Alexander the Great because I can't even pronounce that name, nor do I know who you're talking about. Question. No, I think that Damascus is a very early word. I don't think it's an ancient like place in Nigeria, but I don't want to be wrong about that. So let me just look that up real quick. How old is this Damascus in Nigeria? A gander edit. All right, it had a different name before it was called Damascus. Here, let me show y'all what I mean. I'll show you what I mean. So to answer your question, it says according to the legend, the town was founded by this person. I'm not going to try to pronounce that name. Well, I guess I'll try. Kama Modu. And it seems that Damascus was a stronghold of the Sayo civilization in the 16th century. So I don't think this is the Damascus of scriptures, because Damascus of scriptures goes back to the Iron Age. Damascus of scriptures is actually one of the oldest continuous inhabited cities. It says right here, Damascus is one of the oldest continually inhabited cities of the world. So it's first settled in the second millennium BC. So it's hard for me to say that the Damascus of Nigeria is the Damascus of ancient of the ancient scriptures. I feel like to me it makes sense for Damascus to be in Syria from what I know in scriptures, especially since it's mentioned with um, other nations in the scriptures. So let me go on to the next question. Try to get through y'all's questions fairly quickly. Gog and Magog were sealed behind the Caucasus Mountains by the Yemenite. Uh, Yemnaya, the Yemnaya are older, like older by a couple of thousand years than the Himmerite, or even before the word Himmerite existed. Even before Arabs existed. The Yemnaya are like they're like a extremely early Bronze Age, possibly even late Chalcolithic people. So I know what you're saying, but historically, Gog and Magog would not. They would descend from the Yemnaya, but they wouldn't like directly be the Yemnaya. He was a Himmerite king. Okay, he was a Himmerite king. Okay, my bad. I must have read your question wrong. Sorry. Okay, that study. I know that study, but that's to somebody else. But I'm familiar with that study. It's a good study. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I don't really equate the Damascus of Nigeria to be the Damascus of Scripture. What we have to keep in mind is just because a word sounds familiar doesn't mean it is that word. Because there's a Mari in ancient Mesopotamia that was a Semitic city, but then there's a Mari in Russia. But I wouldn't connect the two Maris as being the same Mari. Like I wouldn't say that Mari people in Syria migrated to Russia. Like here, let me show you what I mean. You have Mari, Syria, ancient Mari, Syria, and I often use this as an example of the phenotype of a lot of early Semites. So here's Mari, Syria, but there's also a Mari in Russia. Also a Mari people in Russia. They're a Finnic people, Mari people. But I won't say that the Mari people in Russia are the Mari people of Syria, ancient Semites. So just because there's a same name of a population or people or city, I wouldn't say that it represents, the same thing. You have to be careful about that. We're going to the next question. Oh, you're saying that oh oh okay, that they are ancient Israelites. I gotta make that. Oh yeah, I've heard about the Pashtuns being Israelites. I've heard about that. Yeah, it makes sense that Israelites would have went to Afghanistan. That's highly plausible. I wouldn't deny that at all. Um, there's definitely Israelites in Afghanistan. Would I say that they are all the 9 tribes? I would say Israel's a bit more scattered than that, than placing them all in Afghanistan. I would say some would have been around the Middle East, some would have been around the Mediterranean, some would have definitely been in Africa. So, but yeah, Pashtuns. I've heard of Pashtuns being Israelites. I don't deny that. It's highly plausible. Were these warrior kings like specimens? Were these warrior kings like Nimrod and Nebuchadnezzar physically specimens? Can you clarify that question? It's a bit strange. Oh, they kill. Oh, basically, were they like superhumans, like Captain America or something? Um, I do feel like ancient man, to a certain extent, was kind of strong in a roundabout way. If we were to go with like a young Earth, um, like the way that they built the pyramids is fascinating. Like those giant blocks of like sand and rock, and it's like, how did you do that? And the ziggurats in Iraq and stuff like that. So ancient man from a young Earth perspective could have been a bit more different than today. Like maybe they could had the ability to, you know, kill a lion with its bare hands. But then again, Nimrod could have also killed the lion with a sword or a arrow, bow and arrow. But go to the next question. Did Esau kill Nimrod? I know that's in the book of Jasher, I believe, but there are some issues with the book of Jasher. Uh, its origin and its time period in which it was written. I know the book of Jasher is mentioned in scriptures, but the question is, do we have that book of Jasher? So, uh, so that's where I heard about Esau killing Nimrod. Personally, I think Nimrod he could have just died an old man, or he could have uh, been killed by his kids, or he could have been assassinated by a rival ethnic group slash kingdom. We don't really know what happened to Nimrod in scriptures. He could have even went back to Africa since he was a Cushite, but we don't really know what happened to him. Sort of lost because he's not the main protagonist of the scriptures. He was just a miniature antagonist that was dealt with by the Most High himself by mixing the languages. Who is E1B1A 7A? I will touch on E1B1A in future videos. That's a great question, but I'll touch on them in future videos. Unless you're asking who are they like, and as in an ethnic group today, like I can probably tackle that if that's what you mean. What group of people does Jesus resemble the most uh, as he as he's as he's returning? I feel like when Yeshua returns, he's gonna be in God mode. Like he's not. I don't feel like he's gonna look human in the sense of like flesh and blood. Like he's gonna be in God mode. He's gonna be wrecking people, um, like Superman or something. Like I don't think he's gonna be flesh and blood. Like he came first as a human in flesh and blood, but when he returns, he's gonna basically be the vision that John had. He's gonna be a powerhouse, indescribable, beautiful, and powerful. The Pashtuns are undefeated. The ancient DNA. Yeah. Pashtuns are definitely. They definitely have a very strong case of being descendants of Israelites, and they do have E markers, which is very interesting. Like I said, I definitely don't deny that Pashtuns are Israelites. That's definitely something that I can see to be true. Would ancient DNA? Oh wait, no, not ancient. Would ancient diet be superior? Yeah, I feel like ancient diets of the pre-flood world, from a young Earth perspective, was a lot better than our food. Our food is specifically in the West. I probably can't speak for nations outside of the West, but specifically for the Western world, our food is very unhealthy. I think Americans are the most obese people in the world according to statistics. So that tells you everything right there. The study called. Yeah, I know that study. It's a good study. What would the Vikings be descendants of? Yes, I believe the Vikings would be descendants of Japheth. Vikings had haplogroup I. Haplogroup I is typical of Scandinavian, Germanic, and Scandinavian, Germanic, Swedish people, basically Nordic people, Nords. And so I believe that they would be from Japheth, speaking their Norse, Proto-Germanic languages. In your opinion on hidden history and taking points on the Moorish empires are interesting. That's not my main focus though. But the Moors were a very interesting group of people, making up of various ethnic groups. I haven't watched Hidden History. I don't know where I can find it. Personally, I haven't seen where I can like get it. But I'll take a look at it if you can direct me to where it's at. But like where I can watch it. But yeah, the Moorish Empire was very influential to Europe in that time period, and they had a very strong impact in the medieval Europe. Yeah. What's your pets? I don't know because I don't have any. I don't have any pets. I have no dogs, no cats, no lizards, no snakes, no goldfish. No, I have no pets. What's your good question. What is my Y-DNA haplogroup? I'll actually cover my genetic background and my family history background in future videos. Basically, when I'm done with the Israelite videos, I will mention all of that in that time. Wouldn't have ancient Israelites assimilated people because everywhere they settled, they're not alone. Yeah, I definitely believe ancient Israelites would have assimilated other people, would have mixed with other people. I mean, they're human beings. I mean, if a young guy sees a cute girl and she's from another nation, he's gonna get with her. Especially especially if he's like rebellious. Same thing with a girl. If a girl sees a cute guy and she wants to get with him, she's gonna do it. I feel like teenagers back then with their hormones were kind of no different than teenagers today with their hormones. So Israelites would have intermarried and mixed with other people that they're around. I think that's just the most human, the most human question, or yeah, the most human answer I can give. What about G2A? G2A is Japheth as well, I would say. It's seen in a lot of Caucasian peoples, specifically Georgians, peoples of the western part of the Caucasus. And I definitely don't think Caucasians are Shem, and I definitely don't believe Caucasians um, are Ham. So I would say G2A would belong to Japheth. What happened? What will happen to the modern day Jews? Is the ancient? Can you kind of clarify that question? I think you meant to say if, but I want to make sure. What will happen if the modern day Jews? Yeah, can you clarify that question just a little bit? The ancient, the children of Israel. Yeah, Jews or Israelites would have been with Moors in Spain and in North Africa. Those are places that the Israelites, ancient Hebrew communities, are known to have been. So yes, they would have overlapped with one another. Shalom, shalom. So if y'all don't have any more questions, or if you have last minute questions, it's best to send them now because I'm about to end the live stream and create a better thumbnail and the title. About to end it here in a second. Going to take a few more questions and then I'll end it. Any opinions on the Vatican? Yeah, it kind of would be cool to know what those hidden books are. Somebody needs to be join the Vatican and expose the books. Now I'm playing. But it would be interesting to know what's written, just like in the book of or not book, but just like in the libraries of Timbuktu, like what's there, like those books need to be translated as well. There's a lot of like ancient texts around the world that need to be translated. Like, it'd be nice to know what's in these books. What will happen to modern day Israelites when the lost tribes will claim their land? What will happen to? I assume that they'll return to the land. Modern day Israelites, they'll return to the land of Israel. That's prophecy, at least the way I read the scriptures. I see it as prophecy. What haplogroup would Abraham? Abraham would have haplogroup E. I feel like E is the best case for Abraham. Makes the most logical sense to me. Yeah, yeah, E. I feel like he would have been an E marker. Not getting to specifically which one, but he definitely would have been an E marker. When I get to my models, when I get specifically into my models, I'll say it then, but I'm not gonna say it now because no matter what I say, whether I say E1B1A or E1B1B, people are gonna want to know as to why I come up with that conclusion for whichever one I choose. So I'm not gonna do it now, but I'll wait until I can put it into a presentation format. And thank you for coming to the show and checking it out. I appreciate you as well, Asiatic Lion. Thank you. Thank you as well, Sultan. Thank you for coming to the show. But I'm gonna end it. If people don't have any more questions, remember there will be a third live stream tonight, but technically it'll be part 2 of Rabbi Harry Rosenberg. Um, gonna do a few more questions. Maybe this time we can get to y'all's questions. But gonna answer this last question. Let me see what this is. This is actually my first. Well, technically, it's my second. My second live. I was gonna start doing live streams of 2022. I didn't have any live streams whatsoever prior to 2022. Everything I did was pre-made videos, and I'm still gonna make pre-made videos because that's just easier for me. And I already have a lot of pre-made videos. Like most of my J videos are already pre-made. Like if I wanted to, I can post them all at once. But I'm just choosing to do it week after week so people can absorb the information. But I will have pre-made videos when I'm done with a certain type of section of videos so y'all can ask me questions. But so don't expect these live streams like every week. Like I hate to say this way, but my live streams might be once every month. You can also contact me on Clubhouse and my other social media platforms, but I might not make this a weekly thing. It depends. It depends on how this goes, like view count and stuff like that. If a lot of people like were in tuned and actually wanted it, like if they don't want it, then I'm not going to give it. But if people want it, then I'll consider giving it. Uh, can you kind of clarify that a little bit? I don't quite. My brain isn't really processing well when it comes to the sins because I'm a bit sleepy at the moment. But can you reword that, please? And then that'll be the last question, and then I'll end it. And unless you're there, I don't know if you're still there or not. Uh, I guess I'll go ahead and end it there. Wait, did you say? Oh wait, no. I think. Sorry, I actually am quite sleepy. I just now read the comments slowly. What good looks trigger survival ability in the ancient times? Oh, nah, I don't think so. Do not think so at all. I'm going to end with a more serious question. Uh, do do you need all the markers? You only need one to be considered a Levite. Only one. And my personal feeling is that it has to be E, but in a roundabout way, it could be different ones when other people join the faith. But specifically, the E ones, what I'll be focusing on, and yeah, so yeah, to be considered a Levite, you only need one Y-DNA chromosome because it's passed down from father to son, father to son. So yeah. But we'll end it right there at the 2 hour and 15 to 16 minute mark. Come back tonight for a third episode of my live streams, but part two of Rabbi Harry Rosenberg. It'll be at midnight Central Standard Time. Again, 12 o'clock midnight Central Standard Time to see Rabbi Harry Rosenberg again. Thank you for coming. Have a great day. Check out my socials if you want to contact me. Leave a comment if you like the video. Share it, subscribe, click the bell. And with all of that out of the way, have a great day and shalom.